Okay, so I was gonna do this as an Instagram live video, but the connection is pretty crappy when I try to do it live. So I'm just gonna put this link all over. So I wanted to talk for a few minutes about raising free people, work, and the holidays, that combination of things, because it's enough work, the work itself of practicing partnership centered relationships with young people, whether as a parent or as another family member or as a facilitator in some sort of liberation minded learning space. There's enough work for us to do, our own deschooling work, working in community with other people in different ways than we're used to. All of that is hard enough. But when we add to all of that work that extra layer of performance that comes with holiday planning and holiday happenings, it can really make for easy opportunities to fall back into our old habits with parenting and relating to young people. So I just wanted to take a few minutes to offer some disruptions to your regularly scheduled programming, or our regularly scheduled programming rather, around the ways that we're learning to relate to young people, what we're used to versus what we're practicing now. So I'm going to give the times tables example because it may be one that you've heard me talk about before or seen me write about before. But it feels like such an easy example of the ways that we perform and force children to perform. And the reality that we have some alternatives around that option. So about 7-ish years ago when we first started life without a focus on schooling, we still had a lot of very like schoolish ideas, right? Because we were still kind of deconstructing certain basic ideas for ourselves. And one of the things that we needed to do a lot of work on was recognizing the ways that we were forcing Marley and Sage to perform for adults, us, and for other adults as well. And the times tables was one where that was most evident, because when we started unschooling, or even before, we were still homeschooling for that short bit in between schooling and unschooling. One of the things that we forced the girls to do was practice and recite their times tables. And in my mind, that was important because, of course, times tables are important life skills. They're really useful. It's one of the few things that you learn in school that you see the purpose of the shit when you're out of school, right? So I was drilling them about the times tables. What's 7 times 9? What's 8 times 6? Let's get it. One, because you need to know these things, but also because when you're out and about, especially when we first started this, we were going to Jamaica a lot, very conventional space in terms of education, at least the circles that we're in back home. So for me, the times tables was not just about the life skills, real talk, really and truly. Really and truly, it was also a way for me to be like, see, they know stuff. See, they're learning. Ta-da! It was a performance thing. But I didn't see it as that. I only looked at the aspect of it being a really useful life skill, and that, how else was I going to know if they knew it if I didn't force them to recite it to me? But as I said, over time, I realized that that was a lot less about the life skill and much more about holding on to things that made it easy for us as adults to navigate space as people who weren't in conventional education with our children. It would make other adults feel comfortable. We knew that because it made us comfortable. And so, hey, since it's something the girls needed to know anyway, why not just make them do it, make them learn it, make them perform it? That mindset is also an example of what we do during the holidays. We say, of course, I don't want people all in my business. Of course, we don't want grandma or auntie or whoever knowing the real details of our lives. Of course, we only want to share what feels good for privacy reasons, and also because we're just not that close with those people. Also because we don't want to, we want to focus on the holidays and feeling good and all of that. All of those things are true. All of those things can be true. All of those things can be perfectly valid, rational reasons why we talk to our children about how they need to be when company's around, when we're visiting company or company's visiting us or whatever. But what's not as evident, what's not as readily apparent if we don't really think through it, is that caught up in this idea of how we want people to see us is how we force children to perform and conform to the perception that we want the other people around us to have. So we start policing even more what our children wear. If in the regular months we're just like, okay, I'm not comfortable with this, but I'm going to let you express yourself, or we could talk about it or whatever. In the holiday season, because of all of the different stressors, we tend to shut that down. This is what you wear on Christmas Day. This is what you wear in Thanksgiving. This is what you wear in this and that. Or you see what they might be wearing and you start tripping. You start thinking about what this person might think, or the fact that you don't want to have a conversation with this person about it, or this uncle who is kind of shady grady, so you don't even feel comfortable with your kid wearing this thing around him or whatever. Again, all of these different reasons. But as we look at these reasons, it's really important when we talk about raising free people work to make sure that the filter of raising free people work is also applied. All of those other valid reasons are filters that we apply to the rationale behind why we do what we do, why we deal with our children the way we deal with them. But the raising free people filter is an important one to include in that mix. So when you're including the raising free people filter, you're thinking about bodily autonomy. You're thinking about what sort of message does it send to my child if I say to them, change your clothes because I don't trust this person? What sort of message does it send to the child if I say, normally I would give you the freedom to do this, but in this space, I'm not giving you the freedom? What might that say? And I won't tell you what I think it might say, because the answer is not as important as questioning the logic, questioning the default, questioning the habit, because you're going to come up with the answer that makes sense for you. And the answer might be, yeah, I'm still going to talk to them about this thing for these reasons. But what's important here is that you're not just applying the usual filter of policing and feeling vulnerable around other people in your life. So in turn, you deal with your children a certain way and you make them fall in line with what's comfortable for you in that space. When you're doing raising free people work, when you're applying that filter, it gives you an opportunity to address these questions and concerns and these things that come up from the space of liberation, not just fear, not just habit, not just feelings of vulnerability, right? Because when we are around people who knew us as children and who related to us as children from, probably a disempowering paradigm in terms of they talked down to us, or maybe they hit us, and, people we love, people we care about, but people who were part of how we were raised in ways that don't feel healthy for us, wounds that we can recognize came from those spaces, all of that. When you're around those people, even when you become an adult, even when you've grown and you got your own kids or whatever, a lot of those traumas, these things, you're not having any ahas at this part, right? A lot of that trauma is still present when you're an adult. The part that might be an aha is that those traumas also inform the ways that you deal with your children around those other adults, and the things that you might force your children to do, or the ways that you perform, or the ways that you force them to perform, that work in opposition to a partner-centered, respect-based, liberation-minded approach to how you want to be with your kid, right? So as you're making these plans for the holidays, you're thinking about what you're wearing, or how you're going to set up the house, and how you want it to look like it's clean all the time, and how you want to make sure your parents don't know that you're living with this dude or this woman, or your parents don't know how you get down, or this particular family member doesn't know how you get down, and you want to keep it that way. Bet. Do you? In all of that, as you make all of those plans, as you do all the things you need to do to feed into and to shape that perception that you want, how is that affecting the children over whom you have power? Are there things that you're doing to them or forcing them to do that are about your baggage issues? Because we all have it. Like, dealing with kids means carry-on luggage. We got to carry on. Are you forcing them now to share the burden of that carry-on luggage? And if so, what are some things that you can do differently? Can you let them wear whatever the hell they want and talk to them about how certain people in the family might view that, but how you support them showing up in the world how they want to in this case? Can you recognize that maybe you want your family to think that you are a healthy eater, but your kid knows that you fuck with cheesecake like real heavy? Can you, instead of asking them to pretend or to front for you or with you, talk to them about the frustrations you have with the family members who judge you for how you eat and why you choose to keep it private? Not from a space of saying to them they can say whatever they want, but just letting them in, as opposed to saying, and you better not tell such and such that I do this. Do you get that? Like, both of those are the same. You're still hiding, but the hiding, your decision to hide, that's your problem. That's your issue. That's a you problem. So is there a way to make it less a them problem? And by them, I mean the children over whom you have power. So these are the sort of things that come up for me and for Chris a lot. Less now because we are traveling, so we're not always around family for the holidays. But it still shows up in a lot of different ways. Performance arts, the performing arts of growing up in oppressive environments and then perpetuating that oppression through the things that we force our children to do in order to keep up a certain facade, especially around the holidays with people we only see a few times a year, and we only, we want to give a certain perception. All right, so I hope that was helpful for you to feel through as you do your thing over the holidays. Enjoy them, enjoy your children. Remember to be a support system for your children over the holidays and not just for this facade that we choose to put up for whatever our reasons are. All right, much love.